because most sellers, what they're doing is like, oh, my neighbor last summer, they sold their house for X amount, so we want to get that. I'm like, yeah, you're right, but also someone else in your neighborhood or close by sold their house that's similar for even lesser.
Last time we sat here, we spent a lot of time talking about the local market from the buy side.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we saw a lot of opportunity on the buy side. I think we should spend some time talking about how it's affecting sellers.
Mm-hmm.
What does this market look like for sellers? How is this? How are you seeing it right now?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Because of the shifting and the transition that we're seeing now, ever since like the past year happened with increasing of interest rates and not really seeing home prices drop significantly. But there has been a change. Like in the past 2 years, from 2020 to probably the beginning, closer to mid of 2022 last year, sellers could just like throw a number out there and then you're going to get it. Yeah. That was a great thing. You know what I mean? Like there was just no thought process. Oh, you want $500,000 for this house? All right, we'll put it $500,000 and we're going to get you $600.
Yeah.
But now things have changed because of the increasing interest rates. A lot of buyers have been bumped out of financing, so we got to be a little bit more strategic. The things we have seen is like homes aren't selling in 4 days anymore.
Right.
Some do. Don't get me wrong. I just want to throw that out there. We are seeing houses tend to set, like there are some that are selling in 4 days, but on average it's gone up to maybe 14 to 30 days.
And what do you think that has to do with more? Is it less buyers out there? Is it less inventory that's meeting buyer demands? Mm-hmm. What do you think has sort of led to that uptick in days on market?
The biggest thing, I think overall, and I'll circle back to days on market. I think overall the uncertainty is the biggest thing, because for buying end, the biggest thing, like buyers don't know what's going to happen. They want to see what's going to happen with the interest rates. They want to see what's happening with the average sales prices and the economy. They want to know what's going on. So I think that's why there's a lot of buyers kind of like slowing down a little bit because of that. Like, sure, interest rates have increased to 6.25%, 6.5%, which bumped most of them out of their financing. So now that they were approved for, like, say, that $500,000 house, that went down to like $400,000 or lower because of the increasing interest rates.
Sure. And
they're not seeing the houses that they want in that price range anymore.
Mm-hmm. And how do you feel that from the sell side,
mm-hmm.
right? From the sell side, how do you feel that buyers are the buyers sort of using that to their advantage when they're coming
mm-hmm.
to the door, making offers, getting down the road, inspections, contingencies, all that sort of thing? How does that look like from the sell side with
Yeah, so this is on the sales side, on the selling aspect.
Sure.
This is where you want to be a little bit more strategic. Mm-hmm. Because if you're just, again, you have to not think about what happened in the past 2.5 years. Just don't even think about it, because we have to think about today, what today's data looks like, and what the activity is showing us.
And that's probably going to be the most challenging thing.
Letting
people know, hey, this is not this is the market we have.
Mm-hmm.
If we were listed in this market, we would have those conditions. This is the market we have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because most sellers, what they're doing is like, oh, my neighbor last summer, they sold their house for X amount, so we want to get that. I'm like, yeah, you're right, but also someone else in your neighborhood or close by sold their house that's similar for even lesser, and you just have to go off of what the data is showing.
Right.
Because what happened like last summer, it's a different market because of the interest rates going up and down. Mm-hmm. And then now this is a different time and a different interest rate. So you have to put on the data what's been going on most recently to show you what we can do for your house.
Right. And are we looking at different sellers? Because I know from the buy
mm-hmm.
side you had these opportunistic buyers that felt like they were going to miss the boat if they didn't get that, and a lot of people maybe ran out and bought a property a couple of years ahead
mm-hmm.
of what they expected because it felt like there was a good opportunity and the fear of missing out. And now you have a more conservative buyer, or a buyer that's not so much in that rush, right? A buyer that's going to be a little bit more selective, knowing that they have some time. Are we seeing two different sellers? You touched a little bit about sellers referencing the previous market.
Mm-hmm.
Are we seeing, sellers come to the market that are selling because of an opportunity,
mm-hmm.
or are they selling because of just that's what their situation is now?
Right. You touched on a lot of good topics, because it's all subjective. It really comes down to each individual situation of a seller, because it could just be somebody trying to take advantage of the current market because of the uncertainty. our price is going to start dropping. If I sell my house today, am I going to sell it for more than what I will in the future? You know, and the cool thing about this location too is it's very transient. Some people do have to sell regardless of the situation, and they understand that, you know, the situation is what it is. Like, you got to sell. And then there are other cases where some people are like, yeah, we want to sell to try and take advantage of it, but we like where we are, so we don't have to go. We're just kind of seeing what happens. Which is more times than not, you know, I have had that situation come up, and that makes things a little harder, because then, you know, it's like, well, do you not want to sell or do you want to sell?
Right.
And so we have to really figure out what that pain is.
So those sellers those sellers had the perfect market over the summer where let's see what happens, and they were surprised to the upside. Those opportunistic sellers where, you know, they were incentivized to list their house for sale if they're getting 50% more than what they paid for it, you know, and those were, if they updated depending on the condition of the property, you know, they're coming to the market, and the buyers have those to choose from. Those sellers, I guess, if they don't have incentive, they're not getting those big premiums, they can sort of say, I'm okay sitting around for a little bit. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and the big thing too you got to think about is who the listing agent is. Like for me, for my listing presentations, my appointments, what I do is I hone in on what exactly is the seller looking for. Like, why are you selling? Like, if you bought this house and you're looking to move, well, what's the pain? Like, is this house too small? Are you growing? You need something bigger? Are you an empty nester? So you just don't need all this space. It's just too much for you to take care of. And it's just really honing in on what is the point of us doing this anyway, and then explaining and then having them trust my system, my strategy that I have in place to get them to where they need to go.
Right.
And that's really the biggest thing, because I may still be able to get you what you want, but you have to trust me and my team on what we do to make you know, your money.
On how to get it, right?
On how to get it. That's the biggest thing, on how to get it.
It's, you know, the tools and tricks that worked in market A are going to be very different from market B. You know, and when you're sitting down and you're having those conversations, and you are referring and sort of letting a seller know where the market is sitting right now, how are those conversations going? Are they open-minded to, you know, the current market, or are they having a hard time feeling like they missed out on an opportunity?
Right now, I think most, if not maybe some, about 50-50, I would say, on my listing appointments, because some feel like they do missed out on opportunity, because we had, like, to give you an example, I had a very good situation where it was a sell, buy, sell. It was this one person.
It was a very good situation.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. You know, I've been working with these people for a year now, because we sold their parents' property, and then we helped buy a big property because they needed an in-law suite, and then now we're working on selling their second house. That way, everyone can move into the new house.
Okay.
The problem is we just went back into another listing meeting to talk about the presentation, our process, and everything. And this is kind of a hard pill for them to swallow, because what we talked about last April isn't the same as what we're going to talk about now.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Same situation, same clients, and they're buying and selling in two very different markets 4 months apart.
That's right. Yeah. And they're not happy. I mean, I told them, like, I've known them for a while, and we have a rapport, so I feel like we're friends at this point. And so I felt enough like I have to tell you, like, this is the data. The important part is the data. You have to show them that this is what's happening in the market today, and this is what the data is moving in your neighborhood. I'm not just saying this because I just want you to sell it for less and make a deal. Right. I'm doing this for your own well-being, because I don't want our property to sit on the market for 30 to 40 days with no offers coming in, and then you having to drop the price, and then we have to, like, make a deal with somebody and end up losing out on money.
Especially with so many moving parts. Everything's got to be done in a certain order, in a certain time frame, in order to ensure that they're getting everything
right. Especially in a situation like that, because we're under contract for the house to buy. So not only are we working on moving them into their new house, we also have to prep their house that they have to sell. Wow. So this is where it really comes down to making sure that we have our timeline in order, the strategy in place, because it's go time.
Sure.
And my job is to make sure it's as smooth as possible for them, because I know that they are stressing out right now. Yeah. And I don't want that. And the last thing I want them to do is to make it harder on themselves.
Right. So now you've got to be a real estate agent. You've got to make sure that you're getting the most for. You have to be versed in the entire market, knowing how these pieces are going to fit, all while making sure that the client is kept cool.
Yep, that's right. And you always have to, because you're always going to be that person. You're like, I don't look at as being a realtor as more so just a person who helps buy and sell houses. You're an advisor too, but also sometimes you're, I don't want to say a therapist, but you're that person that's shoulder crying. You're that person that they have to vent out to. Yeah. Sometimes yell at. I don't like, not that they're yelling at me, but they're just yelling to me. You know.
Well, there's no one else to yell at. Like, you accepted the duty as being the first face through the door, and you accept all that comes with it.
I've had those conversations at the beginning. They're just yelling and screaming. Something's not going. They're just having a bad day.
Sure.
And then at the end of the conversation, they're like, "All right, Jason, thank you for talking me off the ledge. It's great. You know, we appreciate it. All is good." And that happens more. But I guess like kind of answering your question. It just really comes down to the situation of the seller, what they have to do, and then really just setting the expectations, because that's the biggest thing, is showing them the data on what's happening in the local market.
And making sure. And so you mentioned a little bit about strategies, and I think it's very important to know that a lot of what happened over the summer, you could say any property, you could put a sign in the ground, there was just buyers pretty much for anything, any range of properties. There was a buyer for it. Now you're going in and you're having to do certain things. What types of strategies are you putting in place now to make sure that you are setting your clients up for success? I mean, this is a big example. You know, you've got a lot of moving parts there. But whether it's this one or a typical sale, just a typical, I'm listing my house for sale to move on. And what are some strategies you're putting in place to make sure that they get what they want?
Right. So we always set the listing appointment to meet at the house. And most times I'm going in blind. Like, I don't know what the house looks like, but I'm going to give them a general idea of, all right, there's 3 different prices on the seller net sheet where I think we can have your house sell at. And then I go on, first thing I do is I tour the house, look through the house like a buyer, right? See through a buyer's eyes. And that way I can get an idea of what is the buyer really looking at more so than not. Then we sit down and we talk about it. Okay. We go through the pricing strategy, because that's going to be key in today's market, is pricing strategy. You don't just want to throw in a high number and hope for the best and then have to chase the market as it's moving. Because, again, if we list it at 500 but the market is dropping in sales price, because at that point we're just jumping from 500 down to, like, say 480 down to 470. And by the time we get down to 450, you know, it's already too late still, so we're having to drop it even more. But whereas if we started out a little bit lower to get ahead of the market, you want to bring in the revenue, bring in the traffic, so that way, again, you get more people looking at it, potentially getting that bid. All you need is 2. Sure. Technically, all you need is 1. You only really need one offer, the one offer that you want to accept to get it to where it wants to go. But then if you get more than 1, then it's game on, because then if you can get them to kind of compete against each other, to drive it up to where you want it to go.
So the strategies that you're putting in place now are not necessarily the highest price. You're going for the most volume, the most traffic, the most buyers. You want the most people interested in your
because I have no doubt in my mind that if we come to an amount that your house is worth, or an amount that we both think it's going to sell for, I'm not coming below that because I think it's worth less. I'm coming below that because I just want to make sure that we're getting enough eyes.
Because you think that's where the market is. That's where the buyers are waiting. That's where they're ready to accept that price, and they'll feel better bidding it up than they would chasing it up.
And the thing to remember is the market's always going to take it to where it needs to go. The markets are never wrong. Buyers are always the first to know what's going on in the market, and then it's the agents, and then it's the sellers.
Right.
Because the sellers are always the last, because what's going to happen is wherever we list it, like I said, it's either A, going to be a property that's going to sit there days on end because the market's telling it's not worth it, or you're going to start out low, and if it gets accepted at that price, nothing was coming in higher than that, then that's where the market was taking.
That's it. It's the value of the house, the value of the commodity, the value of anything is worth whatever the buyer is willing to pay for it, and that's it.
And everyone's just blaming, the past 2 years on this and that or whatever. Like the sellers, that was the biggest thing that I heard, is like, oh, I'm not paying that. The sellers think they can take advantage. The sellers can do this. I'm like, it's not the sellers, it's the buyers.
Right.
The buyers are driving the prices up over the past 2 years to where they are today. The sellers, obviously, like, if you could list your house and make an extra $100,000 off of it, wouldn't you?
That's it.
Right.
And that's a great way to put it. I think having that visual is eye-opening to buyers out there that are thinking that in a different way. Not a lot of people will think of it that way. When we were talking about strategies, we were talking about listing strategies, pricing strategies.
Right.
What about preparation strategies? What about renovations? What
Right.
about updates?
Yep, that was
like
actually
that.
my next step was coming in, because once we have that discussion about, once we agree on where we think that the price should list to take it to where it needs to go based on the data, we then talk about, say, what do you want to do to your house? Like, what's the condition? Obviously, if it's, say it's 3 years old, the only thing I would recommend really is just, let's make sure if it's decluttered, if there's a lot of stuff, obviously taking your family photos down, you want the buyer that's walking through to be able to see themselves. You don't
Right.
want a buyer to come in and see another family and their stuff, because that could deter them away.
It just sort of breaks the illusion.
Yeah, exactly. When you
it
walk
doesn't
into a model house, right? You
yeah.
see that's like, model houses look fantastic, and then every you walk in and the buyer always thinks all this stuff is included, all this, and like, no, it's
Right.
not. Like, that's the bells
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
whistles. They want you to imagine yourself there with all these things because they want you to buy it.
That makes sense. So that decluttering, that depersonalization helps, is a good strategy, a good recommendation to your sellers.
100% decluttering first, and then it comes down to then like a little bit small. Like, think big, but like start small.
Okay.
Always, like, if the flooring or the carpet needs to be replaced, painting goes a long way. And making sure it's professionally painted. You just don't want to have like paint drips all over the wall.
Right.
Having one solid neutral color throughout the entire house, because let's say if you have an open floor plan, but your kitchen's a different color than your living room, that creates a sense of separation, and it also creates a sense of a smaller room, like there's a divide.
Sure.
But then if you bring a one solid color, it opens everything up that way, and it creates a sense of more space. So whenever buyers coming through, it just looks more open, and then obviously when it comes down to the clutter, the staging that we have in place, it creates a sense of flow.
So in terms of, that sounds like something that's low cost, but it will take you a long way with it.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
So this is what, again, comes into our listening points that we explain. So we pay for everything up front. I mean, obviously if you're painting, you want to do some sort of renovations or updating your house, like there's other things we have in place, other programs we have in place that can help you out with that.
Right.
But as far as like the photos and the staging, that comes, like, I pay for that. That's included with what I pay
Gotcha.
for. Like, you pay me up front. So that's not like an extra that's coming off the closing costs or anything, or extra that's coming off your profit at the end of the day.
Right.
So it's like, we come in with our photos. We have a or a seller consult with our stager. She comes in. We all talk about how can we embellish what you already have. So you don't want to get rid of all your stuff, pack it away in storage or whatever. Utilize what you have, embellish it, and then bring in some other things. That way we can, again, help create that sense of flow for a buyer to be able to see themselves.
And making a commitment. You know,
Yes.
you're setting down, you're making a commitment of your time, your effort, and your money to get that promise fulfilled to your client. You say, hey, we're going to do the best. We're going to, here are the strategies, and here's my commitment, and this is what we're going to do to take it the rest of the way. What would you say to somebody now who is thinking about maybe renovating a bathroom or a kitchen, or they're not really sure? They think that, hey, what if I put $25,000 into my kitchen? Do you think that would be a benefit to me if I go to sell my house? Do you think it's worth it for me to put my $25,000 in? Will I be getting it back?
I would say you're not going to get. If you put $25,000 into your kitchen, the appraiser's not going to walk in and be like, okay, let's add an additional $25,000 to your value because you did that. Like, it will. I'm not going to say it's not going to help. It will. You will potentially have the opportunity, because you can list your house for a little bit more once you update your kitchen or your bathrooms, because you're updating everything. You're making it look a lot nicer than possibly where it looked before. But then can we increase our sales price significantly higher because of that to try and make up the difference? It comes down to the situation in your local market. More times I would probably want to say no. But, I mean, we start at a certain price. Again, if we get enough traffic coming in, there's always a chance we could bid it up to make you your money back. Right. But I don't want this seller to come in thinking I'm putting $25,000 into my house expecting to get all of that back.
So it's always best to check with the listing agent before you start committing to these large projects.
100%. Like before you commit to anything, speak, because we do this every day. Speak with a listing agent. We have a whole team. We do this. We help out people who do need to do some renovations. And speak with us first, because then if that's something you're interested in, then we can get a program plan together that fits within your budget, and we can let you know, okay, if you put this amount into it, we think it's going to be worth it for you to list it at this price to get you the amount that you want. And again, this is something that we plan out based on your needs, and we have a whole meeting about it, and we have all the numbers written down in front of you based on what we think your house should be fixed up to get it to where it needs to go.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so now, for everybody watching, for everybody listening to the dialogue, and everybody hopefully getting some good information out of this, what would one message to potential sellers be? If you could talk directly to a seller right now, someone thinking about putting their home on the market to get something.
Yeah, trust the system. I'm asking you to trust me, not just me, my team. My team consists of me, the other listing agents. Can't forget, Troy's, like, she has an eye for everything. She's the person that comes in. Dan, he's the other, he's one of our contractor agents on our team that he comes in and lets us put together a plan for your updates. I have our whole admin team that works on our marketing, that works with getting the whole team together on the same page with everything. And then I have a number of buyer's agents out there that probably already have a buyer for you. So the idea is just to trust me, trust the system, because what we do works. And we have a whole packet to show you whenever we meet that what we do works. Whenever it comes to somebody selling it as is, or how it looks when we're done with it and what it sells for. We have the data for that to show.
You're going to sit down, you're going to talk to a seller, and you're going to hear what it is that they want to achieve. You're going to hear their story, you're going to hear their goals, and then you're going to lay out your strategy. You're going to lay out your plan. You're going to say, this is what I think we need to do to get you there.
That's right.
And that's it. And then just as long as you're stating upfront that you're committed to this, and the only thing you're asking is that they also commit then to the process.
They just have to commit to the process and commit to me, because then if there's no commitment and you want to take control, it just isn't going to work out as smoothly as possible. Like, once we get there, we talk about what you need, what you want, and where you want to go, and how we're going to get you there. And then you just ask all the questions you need, and then just trust the process. Because again, our system, our process, it works. We do things a certain way for a reason, because we know it works, and we know that our houses on average sell for now less than 14 days, 13 days. Before, obviously, like, everyone was selling in 3 or 4 days.
Right.
Even before COVID, our average days on market were less than 14 days, where you see some houses still sitting for 30 days.
That's big, and having the stats to be. And you also offered up your therapy services. Stress relief. You inadvertently, indirectly said, it's okay to yell at me if you don't like the way things are
That's true. Like, be honest. Yeah, if you want to call and just yell at me just because you had a bad day, let me know what's going on. You stumped your toe and just ruined everything. I don't care. Like, just call. Like, my motto is full transparency.
Sure.
That's with everyone. Be honest with me, because if you're not honest with me, with letting me know what's going on, I can't help you. I can assume, and then if I assume, what everyone says about assumption. So what we don't want to do is just have me think something's going on, which really not. So
awesome.
Yeah, just call me up, let me know what's going on, and then, like, hey, and if you have a house to sell or whatever, and you want to know about our process some more, just give us a call, and then we'll walk you through it.
Yeah, we'd love to talk to you. Contact information below. We'll see you next time.